The job was supposed to be perfectly safe as the poison taster had just cleared the meal, but a few seconds later, everyone learned that for Gero, poison doesn't always have to be on the plate. By microdosing the taster over 3 months, Gero turned a living man into a lethal carrier. Despite being a legendary assassin, Gero's complete lack of social skills leaves him hopelessly single. He tells his sister he fully intends to let their clan's bloodline end with him. But his resolve cracks when his fellow hitman reveals he just got engaged to a wonderful woman. Gero realizes that even monsters in the underworld can find happiness. His next job is handed down by a corrupt syndicate: execute a notorious marriage swindler named Kinosaki. After being injected with a slow-acting paralytic, Mei doesn't beg for her life. She merely explains she scammed awful men to pay for her little brother's hospital bills. Right then, Gero receives a devastating phone call from his sister. To save the clan's future, she is being forced to break up with her girlfriend and marry into a branch family. Desperate to save his sister's freedom, Gero panics and screams a marriage proposal to the dying swindler in front of him. To his absolute shock, Mei angrily rejects him. She tells him that proposing to someone whose life he holds hostage is pathetic and unfair. Breaking his cold assassin persona, Gero yells that he genuinely wants a normal, loving life, but his brutal upbringing makes it impossible for him to connect with anyone. Moved by his raw vulnerability, Mei gives him some harsh advice. If he wants a real relationship, he has to be willing to get his heart broken. Realizing Mei is a master of romance, Gero makes a new deal. If Mei helps him find a wife, he will protect her and her brother.
The corrupt broker is furious at this betrayal and orders his private army to gun them down. But Gero injects himself with a combat stimulant, flooding the room with toxic gas before the thugs can even pull their triggers. Safely hiding from the smoke, Gero calls his sister back. He tells her the arranged marriage is off because he is going to find a wife himself. Safe at a hotel, Mei drops a massive twist on her new protector. The beautiful female swindler is actually a guy who cross-dresses to expand his scamming targets. Kinosaki promises that as a master manipulator, he can teach Gero exactly how to charm women. Their first stop is a matchmaking party, but Gero's idea of a good first impression is aggressively stating his massive assassin income. When Kinosaki tells him to try smiling instead, Gero accidentally unleashes a blood-curdling aura of murderous intent. Switching to a dating app, Kinosaki easily secures a match and sends Gero to meet a woman at a cafe. But when the date offers him a piece of cake, his assassin instincts scream that eating outside food is a death wish. He forces himself to swallow it, only to suffer a massive stress-induced nosebleed, ruining yet another attempt. After 30 brutal rejections, a deeply depressed Gero burns off his frustration by aggressively cleaning a public restroom. Kinosaki tries to find a silver lining by bonding over hobbies, but Gero's hobby is creating a custom cleaning fluid that can instantly dissolve solid steel. As they part ways for the night, a speeding SUV suddenly screeches around the corner and snatches Kinosaki off the street. Inside the vehicle, a rival gang member reveals he kidnapped Kinosaki for revenge. He blames the swindler for ruining his brother's criminal empire. Kinosaki spits blood and defiantly declares he would rather die than work with thugs who target innocent people. The kidnapper prepares to disfigure Kinosaki, but the driver suddenly screams in panic. A lone figure is standing perfectly still in the middle of the suspension bridge. The kidnapper orders his driver to run Gero over, completely unaware of what the assassin is holding. Gero leaps high over the speeding vehicle, uncapping his custom steel-melting acid. He splashes the highly concentrated chemical directly onto the hood, instantly causing a violent, sizzling reaction. The engine block dissolves in seconds, blowing the front of the car apart in a massive explosion. Moving effortlessly through the falling debris, Gero reaches into the collapsing cabin and pulls Kinosaki to safety. Landing gracefully on the bridge, Gero hands back Kinosaki's dropped phone and genuinely thanks him for everything he did today. Looking at the man who just destroyed a car to save him, Kinosaki finally realizes what Gero's undeniable charm is. For the first time in his life, Gero exchanges contact information with a friend. With a master swindler by his side, the legendary poison user's bizarre quest for marriage has officially begun. Gero is a deadly poison assassin, but right now, his biggest challenge is surviving a practice state. His social skills are so bad that merely holding hands sends him into a panic. His dating coach, Kinosaki, takes him to an art museum to practice.
Unfortunately, Gero fails miserably at giving a simple compliment, losing points rapidly. Kinosaki explains that true appeal isn't just about smooth talking. People often fall in love with someone's talent and dedication to helping others. She suggests that Gero's unique charm is saving people. If he rescues a girl in danger, he might just become her Prince Charming. The perfect opportunity arises when a villain hijacks the museum's network. He demands the entire art collection in exchange for a captive. Kinosaki pushes Gero to volunteer for the rescue mission. The locals are terrified to learn that a legendary poison user is casually standing among them. But Gero completely ruins his intimidating aura by solemnly asking the crowd if the captive girl happens to like guys with glasses. Meanwhile, the eccentric museum director tortures his captive, Himekawa, demanding she submit and become a permanent piece of his collection. Himekawa is a noble thief who steals back art for the innocent. She refuses to break, remembering a promise she made to return a stolen portrait to a little girl. Enraged by her defiance, the director violently chokes Himekawa and orders his minions to crush her spirit. Gero and Kinosaki infiltrate the dark museum. Kinosaki scolds him, warning that his obvious desperation for a bride is the exact opposite of prince material. When heavily armed guards ambush them, Gero drops the awkward dating persona and effortlessly neutralizes the threat with a single flying kick.
Seeing his combat skills, Kinosaki decides to use this dangerous infiltration as a crash course in romantic rescue dialogue. But Gero is terrible at multitasking. He struggles to memorize dating tips while simultaneously fighting off a small army of guards. Back in the captivity room, the director changes tactics. He points a gun at the precious portrait, knowing Himekawa cares more about the art than her own life. Broken and desperate, she agrees to his twisted demands just to save the painting from being destroyed. But before the director can celebrate, his weapon disintegrates into magical sparks, leaving him screaming in agony. A shadowy, neon figure emerges directly from the painting to protect it, wrapping the villain in energy and knocking him unconscious. Gero arrives at the scene and solemnly introduces himself, promising the terrified Himekawa that she is finally safe. Himekawa is thoroughly unimpressed, sarcastically noting that she definitely doesn't have the money to hire a high-class assassin. The rescue is cut short when a massive enforcer in a pressurized diving suit crashes through the ceiling, grabbing Himekawa. Realizing the extreme danger, Gero injects himself with a special poison that hyper-accelerates his physical abilities. Moving at blinding speed, he blasts the giant away and safely catches Himekawa in mid-air. The enforcer retaliates by inflating his arm to colossal size, delivering a devastating punch that shatters the entire concrete floor. Down in the rubble, the enforcer proposes a peaceful out-of-court settlement, offering Gero 10 times the mission reward to walk away. He lectures Gero on ruthless business efficiency, mocking the idea of ordinary family dinners and emotional bonds as useless weaknesses. This completely triggers Gero. He explains that his poison bloodline isn't just an enhancement, it's a curse that forces him to fight to the death. The battle resumes with terrifying intensity as the enforcer uses highly pressurized water blasts to keep the assassin at bay. As Gero's movements accelerate closer to death, the enforcer realizes he is fighting one of the most dangerous men in the underworld. Firing sharp water projectiles, the giant assumes Gero is fighting so relentlessly because Himekawa must be his lover. Gero furiously denies it, delivering a brutal flying kick before stomping on the enforcer's helmet to correct the misunderstanding. Channeling all his enhanced strength, Gero punches directly through the pressurized glass visor, causing the giant to collapse into the ruins. Bleeding and exhausted, Gero admits he might look like an idiot, but he desperately wants the very thing his enemy mocked. He declares that he will gladly risk his life every single day just to earn the right to have a boring, ordinary family dinner.
For generations, the Gero clan raised their assassins in complete isolation, forcing them to observe normal human families through a one-way mirror like animals in a zoo. They were taught that ordinary lives were fragile things meant to be manipulated. But for Gero, that distant, normal life became a dream he was willing to bleed for. His opponent, a water-manipulating enforcer, mocks his desperate wish, overwhelming him with high-pressure liquid whips that simulate fluid motion. A devastating hydroblast shatters the floor, knocking away Gero's poison syringes and leaving the assassin completely unarmed against an untouchable enemy. But his rescue target refuses to just play the helpless princess. Himekawa tackles Gero to the ground, deliberately getting into the line of fire. Knowing water jets would simply deflect a thrown object, she closes the distance to hand him a fresh syringe, declaring she wants to save him too. Using the syringe as a mid-air decoy, Gero accelerates past the thrashing water tentacles and jams a thin needle directly into the enforcer's seal sec. With the enemy's suit flooded, Gero confidently carries Himekawa away in a princess hold. But when he realizes his hand is resting directly on her rear, his cool assassin persona completely short-circuits. Instead of executing the defeated enforcer, Gero diagnoses her severe air allergy and provides a cure, ruthlessly asserting his dominance by proving she is too weak to even be worth killing. With the villains handled, Himekawa finally completes her true mission, returning a stolen portrait to a disabled father and his crying little girl. Through a video call, the family showers Gero with pure gratitude, while Kinosaki shows him photos of her own recovering brother, funded directly by Gero's mission.
For a man raised in shadows, this overwhelming appreciation is paralyzing, and when Himekawa promises to reward him with anything but money, Gero's romantic expectations skyrocket. He arrives at the meetup expecting a group celebration, only to realize with absolute horror that he is actually on a one-on-one date. To make matters worse, Himekawa's idea of a romantic evening involves wearing plush shark hats at a bizarre high-energy aquarium restaurant. Hiding behind the restaurant foliage, his marriage coach, Kinosaki, frantically signals for him to execute her foolproof dating strategy, complementing her accessories. Gero nervously points out Himekawa's necklace, assuming it's a cherished family heirloom. Instead, she cheerfully reveals it was a free bonus from a flea market dehumidifier. Desperate to recover, Gero asks if she cut her bangs, to which she blankly says no. In the bushes, Kinosaki watches Gero's romantic approval rating violently crash and burn. Noticing Gero hasn't touched his food, he awkwardly confesses that a lifetime of poison-tasting training has left him incapable of eating meals prepared by strangers. Instead of finding him weird, Himekawa understands. She reveals that she also grew up completely alone in an orphanage, eventually adopted by a dying billionaire just so he wouldn't die forgotten. She inherited a massive fortune, but upon discovering his secret vault of stolen, crying artworks, she spent every single penny returning them to their rightful owners. Now, working multiple part-time jobs just to survive, she laughs at her own foolishness. But Gero stares at her in sheer awe, amazed by her selfless dedication. He gently tells her that he could only experience the warmth of being thanked because of her incredible heart. The raw, genuine praise catches Himekawa completely off guard. Wiping away her tears, she admits she's never been praised like that before. As a tender silence falls between them, Gero's heart pounds like a war drum. He gathers every ounce of his courage, looks her dead in the eye amid the chaotic shark dancers, and formally asks if she will be his friend. In the background, Kinosaki screams in frustration at the missed confession, but Himekawa just bursts into warm laughter, relieved by his absolute sincerity. Gero explains that she has only seen his good side. He wants her to know the dark, blood-stained reality of his world before he ever dares to ask for her hand in marriage. Himekawa accepts his terms. Resting her chin on her hand with a playful wink, she warns him that stealing her heart won't be an easy task. Later that night, as she prepares to leave, Himekawa offers to make him a homemade bento next time, since he can't eat restaurant food. Gero blushes furiously as her car drives away. For the first time in his life, the lonely assassin has successfully taken a step toward a normal connection. His peaceful moment is shattered when Kinosaki runs up, waving her phone to announce his next bodyguard mission, protecting a beautiful corporate heiress. Gero accuses her of making him cheat on a girl he just met, but Kinosaki smiles under the starlight, reminding him that meeting different people is the only way he will truly learn what he wants in a partner. For an elite poison assassin, walking into a crowded college welcome party should be a walk in the park. But as Gero sweats through his suit, he realizes that surviving a social gathering might be his hardest mission yet. His newest client is Shiori, the sheltered heiress to a massive corporate empire. Unfortunately, she possesses absolutely zero social skills, opting to crawl under the tables just to avoid eye contact. When a pair of friendly upperclassmen simply ask if she is enjoying the party, Shiori's brain completely short-circuits. Overwhelmed by the mildest human interaction, she breaks down in tears and ruins the conversation. The inheritance of a trillion-yen business has put a massive target on the shy girl's back. Shiori's aunt is determined to steal the company, and she is willing to hire underground mercenaries to eliminate her own niece. Despite the very real threat of assassination, Shiori begs Gero to let her attend the freshman orientation. She desperately wants to experience a normal college life, even if she has no idea how to talk to people. Because Gero secretly desires a normal life and marriage himself, her heartfelt plea hits him like a critical strike. He immediately agrees to play the role of a completely average college student. But when it is her turn to introduce herself, Shiori suffers a catastrophic panic attack. Her mind races with conversation topics, but her voice fails entirely, forcing her to awkwardly bow and flee back to her seat. Seeing his client's pride shattered, the socially awkward assassin decides to take the heat off her. Gero slams the table, confidently declares himself the life of the party, and prepares to chug 6 entire mugs of beer.
What follows is not a display of college drinking, but a terrifying regurgitation of water-absorbing polymers that forms a massive yellow snake on the floor. It is incredibly gross, but it successfully distracts the entire room. The distraction works a little too well, especially when a mysterious blonde student named Naruko introduces himself. With just a few spiritual words and a charming smile, he instantly captures the hearts of every girl in the room. Walking home in failure, Gero gently tells Shiori that she doesn't need to force herself through painful social events just to inherit a business. But Shiori reveals that corporate duty has nothing to do with it. Before her father passed away, his only wish was for his cautious daughter to stop overthinking and let her true feelings out. He did not care about the money, he just wanted her to experience the joy of connection. She is tired of letting her anxiety control her. Moved by her determination to change, Gero promises that no matter what kind of danger comes her way, he will make sure she survives long enough to make a friend. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Shiori's ruthless aunt is furious that her expensive assassin has not made a move yet, but the charismatic Naruko is playing a much longer, more dangerous game. Naruko has already realized that Gero is not just a random bodyguard, but an absolute professional with 0 openings. The aunt demands that Shiori be forced to give up the inheritance, even if it means permanently silencing her. The next day, Gero actually starts enjoying his fake college life. He even accidentally impresses a professor with his hardcore encyclopedic knowledge of limited edition party goods.
But the peaceful illusion shatters when a violent tremor rocks the building. Recognizing that this is a targeted attack rather than a natural earthquake, Gero orders Shiori to stay completely still. Without warning, the intense vibration shatters the windows and brings the ceiling crashing down. Gero throws himself over Shiori, shielding her from the falling concrete, while the invisible attacker watches from the roof. Surveying the devastation, the assassin's analytical mind kicks into gear. The attacker did not use explosives or poison gas, they weaponized frequency to disrupt the student's equilibrium. To pull off an attack this precise without leaving a trace requires someone who can manipulate acoustics like a physical weapon. Gero realizes they are dealing with a deadly sound user. Despite the near-fatal disaster, Shiori still wants to attend the upcoming class camping trip. Surprisingly, her uncle strongly encourages her to go, insisting she needs to make treasured memories. But her trusted family member is no longer in control of his own mind. Hidden in the shadows, his eyes glow with an unnatural hypnosis pattern, hinting that the camping trip is exactly what the enemy wants. Once they arrive at the campsite, Gero goes into overdrive. Believing that a man who can cook is universally loved, he flawlessly slices and grills barbecue skewers in mid-air to draw positive attention to their group. But Shiori refuses to hide behind her bodyguard's flashy skills. She attempts to distribute the food herself, only to be completely ignored by the lively, fast-paced college crowds. Realizing that normal conversation isn't working, she decides to play to her unique strengths. Putting on a witch hat from her company's catalog, she confidently announces a magic show. Her grand illusion to produce a massive plate of food backfires spectacularly, dropping a mountain of noodles straight onto her own head. But instead of mocking her, the crowd erupts into genuine, warm laughter. Cleaning up by the sunset, Shiori isn't crying. She cheerfully admits the trick was a failure, but watching Gero's ridiculous performance at the pub gave her the courage to risk embarrassing herself. As night falls, the true college experience begins. A classmate gathers everyone to share a chilling local legend about an abandoned village that used to offer dark sacrifices to an ancient shrine.
The ghost story is just the setup for the traditional test of courage. While the girls scream in terror at a cheap jump scare, the seasoned assassin remains entirely unbothered by fake threats. But the real threat is already waiting in the dark. Deep in the woods, Naruko has woven a massive, intricate web of razor-thin silver wires between the trees. Leaping effortlessly across his deadly strings, Naruko prepares to turn the entire forest into a massive acoustic weapon. The sound user is ready to orchestrate a symphony of screams, and Gero is walking right into the trap.
The test of courage starts as a perfect excuse for Shiori to enjoy a normal college event. Walking through the dark woods, she confesses her guilt over putting Gero in danger just for a silly camp. But they quickly discover that someone has hijacked the event. When they take a photo at a checkpoint, the camera flash reveals a glowing demonic sigil where Gero's face should be. Before Shiori can even blink, her bodyguard vanishes into thin air. She runs frantically into the woods, only to find a twisted, inhuman puppet wearing Gero's face. The puppet attacks with terrifying speed, forcing the sheltered heiress to flee blindly up the mountain. She desperately barricades herself inside an abandoned wooden shrine, hoping the nightmare is over. But the real horror is waiting inside. A shadowy figure steps out of the darkness, revealing the face of her deceased father, speaking with chilling disappointment. The illusion expertly preys on her deepest insecurities. The phantom father coldly berates her, declaring that she was always a failure and that her desperate efforts to change are meaningless. Stripped of her confidence and driven to the edge by the hypnotic voice, Shiori steps onto a stool. Convinced that dying is the only way to find peace, she reaches for a hanging noose. But right before she gives up, she remembers the warm cheers of her classmates from the barbecue. Realizing her life is worth fighting for, she kicks the stool away and furiously smashes through the shrine window.
Shiori plummets down the steep cliff toward the river below. Just as she braces for impact, Gero bursts from the water, catching her midair and plunging them safely into the canyon depths. Safe under a protective polymer shield, Gero explains that the camera flash was a trap. A massive sonic shockwave knocked him away, specifically to isolate Shiori for a psychological attack. The mastermind finally reveals himself. Naruko, the charming student from the party, is actually a lethal assassin who uses acoustic frequencies to manipulate minds and matter. Knowing they are sitting ducks, Gero hoists Shiori onto his back and injects a combat stimulant. He sprints through the forest, barely dodging a barrage of invisible sonic blades slicing through the trees. To block the mind-altering frequencies, Shiori places a pair of noise-canceling cat ear headphones on both of them. It seems like a brilliant countermeasure, but Naruko just smiles. Earplugs are useless when sound can travel through bone. Naruko vibrates the headset directly against her skull, plunging Shiori into a hallucination far worse than the last. This time, she sees her beloved uncle. The illusion twists his face as he confesses that he intentionally sent her to this camp just so the assassins could finally get rid of her. Naruko smugly watches her spirit shatter. He knows that once a target believes they have absolutely no allies left in the world, their mind simply gives up. But Gero shatters the hallucination with a dose of brutal logic. He reveals that her uncle actually wrote a desperate 10,000-word review just to make sure he hired the absolute best bodyguard to protect her. Hearing that her family truly loves her, the heavy burden of anxiety lifts from Shiori's chest. She breaks into a soft, relieved smile before peacefully passing out from the mental exhaustion. Luckily, their marriage advisor, Kinosaki, has been tracking them via GPS. Gero hands the sleeping heiress over to her, completely dropping his fake college student persona. Having had his assassination plan ruined twice, Naruko waits deeper in the forest, confident that the poison user has no chance in an open-air fight. Gero refuses to play by the enemy's rules. Instead of attacking directly, he leaps through the canopy, spraying a glowing blue chemical all over Naruko's meticulously placed acoustic wires. Unfazed, Naruko triggers his ultimate technique. The ground violently erupts as thick columns of smoke and earth spiral upward into the night sky. The debris fuses together, forming a colossal, towering stone golem. Naruko commands the massive beast with his acoustic frequencies, turning the entire forest into his personal stage. The giant golem aggressively hunts Gero down, ripping trees from their roots and smashing the earth. But just as it prepares a crushing blow, the stone monster completely freezes.
Naruko is stunned as his control snaps.
Gero casually reveals that his chemical spray wasn't meant to cut the wires, but to rapidly grow the trees, completely throwing the delicate acoustic tension out of tune. Realizing his physical weapon is useless, Naruko pivots to a much more insidious tactic. If he cannot control the forest, he will manipulate the most unstable resource available: human fear. He broadcasts an anxiety-amplifying frequency straight into the campsite. The moment the college students spot the towering stone golem in the distance, mass hysteria takes over. Glowing red sigils appear in their eyes as the students lose their minds. The local ghost story they shared earlier suddenly becomes their terrifying reality. Driven to a fever pitch, the brainwashed mob decides they must appease the angry god to survive. They immediately declare that they must sacrifice the youngest student in the camp. Chanting like a cult, the students check their ID cards one by one. The horrific realization sets in as Shiori's late March birthday makes her the perfect offering. The panicked crowd turns into a pack of wild animals, relentlessly chasing Shiori and Kinosaki to the edge of a cliff. If Gero doesn't end this quickly, his client will be torn apart by her own classmates. The stage is set for a final deadly symphony. Smiling wickedly, Naruko commands the sound waves to materialize a wooden violin out of thin air, eager to play the closing act of the night.
The brainwashed campers are closing in, and the mastermind is already playing his victory symphony. Gero intercepts the deadly sound user, barely dodging invisible sonic shockwaves that slice straight through the trees. The assassin views the world with absolute cruelty, believing that the weak are destined to be crushed by the strong. But Gero refuses that logic, arguing that true strength is having the courage to confront your own weaknesses. Seeking to end the fight, Naruko retreats to a crater filled with healing tree chemicals to amplify his acoustic power. He inhales deeply to dominate the entire forest, but his euphoric high instantly shatters into pure terror. It wasn't tree sap. Gero deduced the exact conditions of Naruko's power and lured him into a pocket of identical-smelling poison gas. Stripped of his sonic abilities, the mastermind is completely helpless against the specialist in close-quarters combat. But the nightmare isn't over. The brainwashed campers are still determined to sacrifice someone to the angry forest spirit.
Knowing another innocent girl will die in her place, Shiori refuses to run away and confronts the madness head-on. The terrified crowd accuses her of faking her magic, entirely driven by their amplified paranoia. She is terrified on the inside, but with Kinosaki silently supporting her from the shadows, she holds her ground. The real magic is happening behind the scenes. Gero leaps above the stone golem, releasing canisters of highly flammable gas. On Shiori's cue, a massive explosion obliterates the monster, perfectly convincing the crowd that her magic saved them. Naruko awakens to find himself defeated, not just by Gero's poison, but by the very girl he dismissed as weak. His twisted worldview was born from a childhood trauma where his father forced him to hurt his own brother to survive. Understanding that pain, Gero doesn't end his life. He simply suggests the assassin try talking to a friend for once. To celebrate their survival, Shiori proudly presents a horrific, pungent bowl of mixed instant noodles, dealing the most damage Gero has taken all night.
The next morning, the campers conveniently write off the entire ordeal as a strange collective fever dream. On the flight home, Shiori awkwardly pats Gero's head, genuinely thanking him for giving her the best memories of her life. Back in the city, Shiori storms into her scheming aunt's office, but she isn't there to demand revenge. Instead, she begs her aunt to train her relentlessly, determined to become strong enough to protect her father's company. Touched by the girl's fierce resolve, the aunt finally drops her hostility and agrees to be a strict mentor. Watching from a distance, Gero realizes Shiori doesn't need to be pressured into a fake marriage right now. He decides to step back and let her pursue her dreams, a massive emotional breakthrough that makes Kinosaki incredibly proud. Assuming their paths will separate forever, Gero is caught completely off guard when Shiori chases them down for one last drink.
But the impromptu party is painfully awkward. Without life-or-death stakes, the two realize they have absolutely nothing in common to talk about. Desperate to save the mood, Gero declares he will perform a special magic trick, walking confidently into the darkness. He tosses a single chemical flower into the air, illuminating the entire canopy with a breathtaking shower of glowing blossoms. It is a beautiful gesture. Gero finally understands that making someone happy doesn't require a fight, just genuine effort.
The awkward tension completely vanishes, replaced by laughter and shared warmth under the starry night sky. As they prepare to part ways, Shiori admits she is greedy. She wants to save the company, live a full life, and maybe even fall in love. Before Gero can process the heavy hint, she nervously hands him her phone, asking to exchange contacts so they can meet again. For the first time in his life, the socially awkward assassin has made a real connection, just as a glowing butterfly arrives with his next deadly mission.
For an elite poison assassin like Gero, a glowing butterfly delivering a polite wedding invitation is just a normal Tuesday. His old friend Toshiki is tying the knot, and Gero desperately wants to look the part. Kinosaki fully supports the idea, pointing out that a wedding is the perfect place to meet someone special. Of course, she also expertly cons Gero into paying for her outfit too. They arrive at the cliffside chapel, which is heavily decorated with giant insects and floating speakers carried by dragonflies. It is exactly the kind of surreal fairy tale setting you would expect from a bug user. But the peace is interrupted when a man spits a barrage of metal needles directly into Gero's face. Gero drops to the floor, leaving Kinosaki screaming in absolute panic. A second later, Gero casually sits up unharmed, introducing the attacker as Tsunagi, a needle user. Tsunagi actually just came to pay off an old debt, proving that Gero has a habit of making very unusual friends. The ceremony begins as Toshiki descends from the ceiling holding his beautiful bride, Anna. Watching his scarred, terrifying friend look so incredibly happy makes Gero feel a quiet sense of hope. He remembers when Toshiki first approached him under a starry sky years ago. Instead of cowering in fear like everyone else, Toshiki simply offered him a drink, treating the deadly assassin like a normal guy. Touched by the memory, Gero asks Kinosaki if he could ever have a wedding that amazing. Without hesitating, she promises that with her help, he absolutely will. But a happy ending is never that simple in the underworld. Outside in the fog, a heavily bandaged cyborg named Yamada arrives with a squad of mercenaries, utterly disgusted by the couple's happiness. Gero's highly trained instincts immediately detect the threat. Not wanting to ruin his friend's special day, he suddenly dumps the responsibility of the best man speech onto a completely panicked Kinosaki and sprints out of the hall. Outside, Yamada explains why he hates the bug user so much. Years ago, Yamada was a depressed man drowning in debt until an underworld boss turned him into a living, breathing explosive. Equipped with internal bombs in his limbs and skull, Yamada finally found a twisted sense of warmth and purpose in his ability to destroy himself alongside his enemies. But one night, Toshiki cornered him in an alley. When Yamada tried to trigger his internal bombs, nothing happened, because Toshiki had quietly used his bugs to disarm them, sparing his life. Instead of feeling grateful, Yamada felt robbed of his only purpose. Now he wants to steal Toshiki's warmth by turning the wedding into a chaotic disaster. But his monologue is cut short as Gero casually strolls through the mercenary squad, having already trapped them all in spider silk. Gero politely declines Yamada's invitation to ruin the party. Meanwhile, inside the chapel, a blushing Kinosaki takes the stage. Covering for Gero's sudden disappearance, she pulls out his written letter and begins reading it to the confused guests. As a heavy storm breaks out, Yamada unleashes his martial arts, putting Gero on the defensive under the pouring rain. A massive blast hurls Gero over the edge of the cliff. Falling toward the churning ocean, Gero hears Kinosaki reading his words, confessing that he used to think seeking out a normal life was a waste of time.
But Toshiki changed his mind. Toshiki is the kind of man who holds an umbrella over a broken assassin in the rain, offering kindness without asking for anything in return. Refusing to let his best friend's day be ruined, Gero fires high-tension wires from his gauntlets. He swings back up the cliffside, launching himself straight into the storm. Moving faster than the cyborg can track, Gero wraps his wires around Yamada's mechanical leg and hurls him violently into the sky, calmly stating that he refuses to stain this happy day. Floating helplessly in the air, Yamada is suddenly contacted by his twisted boss over an earpiece. The boss removes Yamada's safety limiters, promising a blast large enough to vaporize the entire mountain. His rocket boots igniting with blinding heat, Yamada blasts through the storm clouds. He screams in absolute rage, determined to end everything right now. But as he reaches the peak of the sky, Yamada finally realizes the truth. Toshiki didn't steal his warmth, he was just offering a gentle hand to an enemy who didn't know how to ask for help. Letting go of his hatred, Yamada points his massive energy blasts directly upward. He overrides his boss's orders, declaring that he has decided to give the couple a proper wedding gift. Just as Kinosaki finishes reading Gero's wish for a happy ending, a spectacular golden explosion erupts in the sky. To the guests inside, it looks exactly like a breathtaking fireworks display.
Sitting quietly on the glass roof, Gero smiles as the golden light washes over the ocean. His friend's wedding is safe, and the day remains perfect. Later at the reception, Toshiki sincerely thanks Kinosaki for helping Gero. He admits that he is the one who owes Gero everything because their friendship defies all the rules of their world. Toshiki explains the strict hierarchy of poison users. At the very top sit the 5 great families, terrifying elites who treat branch families like insects that only exist to serve. Gero is the heir of one of those legendary families, but years ago, when Toshiki's family groveled before him, Gero refused to treat them like bugs, proving he was just a genuinely good guy with a heavy burden. Hearing how much Gero's kindness has impacted the people around him, Kinosaki's eyes well up with tears. She makes a firm vow to find a partner who will walk alongside him for the rest of his life. Gero finally returns to the party, only to be completely baffled as he watches Kinosaki casually laughing and partying with the underworld's most dangerous assassins. The night ends beautifully as Toshiki flies off into the starry sky with his bride. For Gero, seeing his friend achieve a normal, happy life proves that his own dream isn't impossible. Gero slips right back into his dark reality, easily completing his next elimination contract. But this time, as he checks his phone for his next date, the shadowy path ahead feels just a little bit brighter.
For a deadly poison assassin like Gero, a normal date might as well be an alien concept, but he quickly learns that understanding a partner's feelings requires just as much strategy as a covert mission. Applying his killer instincts to a simple whack-a-mole game might terrify onlookers, but it proves he is genuinely trying. Kinosaki explains that dating isn't about being perfect, but about sharing the joy of the moment. As they take silly photos together, Gero begins to understand the simple warmth of peaceful memories. Unfortunately, peace is a rare luxury for people in the underworld. Their quiet afternoon is abruptly interrupted by Kimie, a pink-haired beast tamer from the underworld. She has tracked Gero down with a desperate demand for protection. A mysterious assassin hunter has been wiping out high-ranking killers across the city, and her clan is mobilizing to stop them. Kimie boldly demands that Gero act as her personal bodyguard until the threat is eliminated. But her confident facade quickly crumbles, revealing that she is just a normal office worker who has never actually killed anyone. Her powerful family ignores her entirely, intending to use her as nothing more than a disposable meat shield. Seeing the genuine terror in her eyes, Gero's awkward but kind heart wins out. He agrees to protect her for practically nothing, instantly earning her overwhelming devotion. Overjoyed to have a legendary assassin on her side, Kimie proudly brings them to a local petting zoo. She intends to introduce her new protector to the elite beast tamer assembly gathering there. However, the introduction is cancelled the moment they step through the gates. Every elite beast user in the assembly has already been brutally slaughtered in their respective enclosures.
The killer hasn't left yet, and he immediately mistakes Gero's group for his next targets. Sensing an overwhelming aura of danger, Gero pushes the girls back and intercepts a lethal strike. The young assassin, named Peach, treats the deadly encounter like a minor inconvenience. He happily notes that finding them here will save him the trouble of hunting them down later. Realizing that traps and tactics won't work against this monster, Gero takes a desperate gamble. He injects 2 potent chemical enhancements directly into his nervous system to temporarily shatter his physical limits. Empowered by the drugs, Gero launches a blistering assault that sends Peach flying across the concrete rooftop. It looks like a decisive victory until the dust finally settles. Peach emerges from the rubble completely unfazed, casually taking a phone call in the middle of their fight. He hasn't taken a single point of damage. Effortlessly ripping a massive steel billboard from the roof, Peach treats the heavy metal like a toy. Gero's chemically enhanced reflexes are barely enough to dodge the devastating swings. Peach politely claims to be an ordinary citizen from a family of teachers. Pushed past his limits, Gero realizes that no amount of training can overcome this kind of terrifying genetic anomaly.
Left with no other options, Gero pulls out a highly dangerous third toxin. He attempts a suicidal power-up, knowing that his body might not survive the intense chemical recoil. The massive overdose instantly backfires, overwhelming his internal organs and bringing him to his knees. Completely helpless, Gero collapses onto the concrete, seemingly seconds away from death.
As Peach stands over him to deliver the final blow, Gero channels his last ounce of strength. But instead of pleading for his own life, he begs the assassin to spare his clients. The ruthless assassin is caught entirely off guard by Gero's selflessness. The confusion deepens when Kimi's tiny hamster bravely crawls out, fiercely standing its ground to mourn Gero's sacrifice. Throwing away all her previous cowardice, Kimi furiously screams at the invincible killer. She refuses to abandon the man who threw away his life just to protect her. She boldly declares that she would gladly die to protect her favorite people, fully prepared to face Peach's wrath. This bizarre display of loyalty completely breaks Peach's concentration. Kimi summons all her courage to unleash her ultimate beast tamer technique. She dramatically poses as her hamsters form a glowing constellation on the rooftop. Despite the flashy buildup, the tiny hamster formation looks incredibly harmless, leaving Peach completely bewildered. He has spent his life fighting ruthless killers, and this absurdity is entirely new to him. Instead of finishing the job, Peach casually lifts Gero onto his shoulder to carry him to a hospital. He admits that seeing underworld figures actually protect each other made him lose his desire to kill them. Peach reveals that his true target is the beast tamer families because he wants to stop their massive terror plot. He is only hunting dangerous people to prevent a future disaster.
When asked about the other elite assassins he slaughtered, Peach cheerfully shrugs. He explains that taking out the city's worst serial killers was just a convenient side project along the way. His ultimate motivation is surprisingly wholesome. He simply wants to open a peaceful cafe with his girlfriend. He believes that eliminating the underworld's monsters is the only way to ensure his future customers can relax. Taking on the entire underworld for a cafe sounds like an impossible dream. But after experiencing Peach's terrifying power firsthand, Gero realizes this naive kid might actually pull it off. Sensing that Gero shares a similar desire for a normal life, Peach officially declares him a non-threat. Kimi laughs in relief, believing they can finally walk away from this terrifying feud. But the underworld never lets its tools go that easily. Without warning, the dark choker around Kimi's neck violently constricts, bringing her to her knees in agonizing pain. Gero quickly identifies the collar as a parasitic beast designed by her own family to maintain absolute control. If anyone tries to forcibly remove it, the creature will instantly drain Kimi's blood. A mechanical bat swoops down, projecting the voice of the true mastermind behind the terror plot. He mocks their helplessness, gleefully announcing that Kimi only has 2 minutes left to live. To save her life, the mastermind issues a twisted invitation to their heavily fortified headquarters. Gero might be heavily injured, but if the underworld wants his client's life, they will have to deal with his poison first.
The protection mission is technically over, but for their client, the real suicide mission is just beginning. Arashiyama knows her clan is using her as bait to hunt Gero, and she tearfully refuses to let him risk his life for her. But Gero isn't just a cold assassin anymore, believing that abandoning someone in tears means he will never be able to make anyone happy. The enemy does not give them time to argue, launching a massive ambush from the depths of the ocean. While a giant squid attacks their boat, a massive eagle swoops down from the sky and snatches Arashiyama away. Gero instantly injects himself with a speed-enhancing poison to sprint across the water, leaving the giant squid to his seemingly helpless companions. However, Kinosaki quickly realizes she doesn't need to panic because Peach handles giant monsters the same way he handles dinner. Pulling up a quick cooking tutorial on his phone, the combat specialist treats the terrifying sea beast like ordinary seafood. In seconds, the monster is effortlessly reduced to perfectly portioned cubes, ready for a cafe menu.
Meanwhile, Gero tracks the eagle to a nearby cliff, coming face to face with the fastest member of the bird user family branch. The eccentric assassin treats combat like a baseball game, launching a high-speed barrage of pigeons to overwhelm his target. His strikes are blindingly fast, proving that the bird user family possesses physical abilities far beyond ordinary assassins. Watching through remote cameras, the mad scientist Dogo drools over the fight, desperate to harvest Gero's legendary poison blood. Under heavy pressure, Gero deploys a thick cloud of purple gas to apparently mask his movements. The bird user holds his breath to survive the toxic smoke, only to take a devastating physical blow straight to the face. The gas was entirely fake, a brilliant psychological decoy that forced the speedster to freeze just long enough for Gero to strike. Defeated, the bird user accidentally triggers the collar on his neck, allowing Dogo to hijack the conversation. The sadistic mastermind laughs hysterically at Gero's reason for being there, mercilessly mocking his wholesome desire to find a wife.
He reveals his true goal, to harvest the highly evolved, masterfully crafted blood of the Poison Clan for his own twisted experiments. To make matters worse, a rigged drone explodes near the harbor, completely separating Peach and Kinosaki from the main group. Back on the cliff, the bird user launches one final desperate charge, turning his entire flock into a dense, crushing weapon. But mid-attack, the birds suddenly collapse out of the sky, leaving their master completely defenseless. Without anyone noticing, Gero had subtly laced his own spilled blood with a potent muscle relaxant, letting the birds defeat themselves when they pecked at it. A final, brutal slam to the rocks permanently ends the baseball game, proving that raw speed can never beat calculated deception. Bleeding and broken, the bird user accepts his complete defeat, stubbornly promising to win their next rematch without using dirty tricks. But Dogu has no use for losers, using the collar to forcefully fuse the assassin's blood with a foreign animal's. The incompatible bloodlines instantly violently reject each other, neutralizing the bird user on the spot as a horrific display of Dogo's power. Far away on a deserted beach, Kinosaki wakes up from the explosion, only to find a massive polar bear looming over her. Peach effortlessly intercepts the beast, proving once again that his combat skills are practically superhuman. But the enemy anticipated his strength, sending a secondary ambush while he is exhausted from protecting his companion. The second bear splits open to reveal one of Dogo's elite enforcers, who swiftly neutralizes Peach and drags him into the shadows. Safely hidden in his lab, Dogo celebrates having secured the blood of both a poison user and an unparalleled combat specialist. Trapped in a dark cave with no backup, Arashiyama breaks down in tears, deeply ashamed that she is too weak to help anyone. But Gero looks at her not as a burden, but as a true partner, declaring that he and the hamster user are going to crush their enemies together. Exhausted from their journey, Gero rests in a quiet cave while Kini promises to cook him a special meal. She excitedly summons her tiny hamsters to gather the best ingredients they can find. Thanks to the hard work of her adorable companions, she proudly presents a mysteriously glowing bowl of homemade porridge. As she eagerly shoves a spoonful into his mouth, Gero is haunted by his grandfather's strict rule. He was taught to never trust food prepared by others, since a poison user's slightest negligence means death. But instead of danger, Gero only tastes the warmth of her care and gives her a genuine compliment. Kimi is left completely flustered, overjoyed that her efforts finally reached him. Their peaceful rest is abruptly interrupted when a smug beast tamer steps out of the forest shadows. Not wanting the noise to wake the exhausted girl, Gero silently steps up and neutralizes the arrogant threat in the blink of an eye. But his relief shatters when a sinister pink-haired man casually steps out of the cave. The stranger complains about the food, casually revealing that he snatched Kimi while Gero was distracted. Dropping Kimi's crushed glasses onto the stone floor, the man introduces himself as Therion. He mocks Gero's horror, playfully confirming that he has already captured his bride candidate. Therion's playful demeanor suddenly twists into a manic obsession. He reveals that Gero's unique bloodline is the missing key needed to perfect his twisted genetic experiments. Meanwhile, Kimi wakes up trapped inside a high-tech glass cell. Realizing the desperate situation, she quietly dispatches one of her tiny hamsters through the air vents to gather intel. Back in the forest, a furious Gero injects a dangerous double dose of combat serum into his neck. He is ready to tear the forest apart to get Kimi back. But Therion simply laughs and unleashes his ultimate trap. Gero finds himself staring down an entire army of 100 elite beast tamers and their monstrous pets. Gero pushes his enhanced reflexes to the absolute limit, dodging rampaging elephants and wild wolves. However, the sheer numbers quickly overwhelm his defenses. Pinned to the muddy ground, the Gero considers a suicidal triple overdose, but the echoing memory of his grandfather's strict warnings paralyzes his hand, leaving him utterly defenseless. Beaten into the wet grass as heavy rain pours down, the legendary assassin is pushed to his absolute limit.
Just as the tamers close in for the kill, a massive geyser of water blasts them into the sky. A confident woman in a yellow jumpsuit steps through the storm, casually handing over her business card. The woman is Ushio, a formidable water user. She coldly makes it clear that she isn't here out of friendship, but simply because she was paid a premium rate by a very demanding client. Miles away, Gero's blonde marriage broker, Kinosaki, cheerfully rides a rhino alongside Arima. She explains that sending premium backup was always part of her grand master plan.
Kinosaki calls it the Prince Charming operation. By putting Gero in situations where he rescues girls in distress, she hopes to finally help him secure a normal, loving relationship. Back on the battlefield, Ushio's high-pressure water attacks easily push back the horde, but even her immense stamina begins to drain against the endless waves of enemies. Stepping up beside her, Gero solemnly asks for her assistance. The unexpected respect from a legendary assassin catches the elite water user completely off guard. Combining their powers, Gero releases a dense cloud of non-lethal knockout gas. The enemy tamers mock the predictable poison attack, confident that keeping their distance will save them. But they fail to realize the true combo. Ushio summons massive tornadoes of water, aggressively whipping the purple fog across the entire plains and suffocating the army in seconds. As the sunset breaks through the clearing mist, hundreds of enemies lie unconscious. Ushio pulls off her face shield, loudly complaining about the reckless, uncoordinated tactics. But when Gero removes his mask and flashes a warm, incredibly sincere smile of gratitude, the tough water user immediately turns away to hide her bright red blush. Meanwhile, in the enemy dungeon, Kimmy's time is rapidly running out. An older prisoner calmly advises her to abandon all hope and mentally prepare to die as a mindless beast. The cruel warden taunts the terrified girl, bragging about his twisted plans for her. Pushed to the edge, Kimmy weeps, bitterly regretting ever getting involved with the dangerous underworld.
But as the darkness closes in, her mind drifts back to the past. Years ago, she was just a helpless child held hostage in a similar nightmare until a mysterious boy kicked down the door. That young boy was Gero. Moving faster than a bullet, he systematically dismantled the heavily armed kidnappers with terrifying precision. Gero had saved her life that day, but he coldly stated it was just business before walking away. Despite his icy exterior, young Kimi had instantly declared him her ultimate Prince Charming. Returning to the present, Kimi realizes that Gero isn't just following orders anymore. He is fighting entirely out of his own free will to protect her, pushing past his own limits. Refusing to be a helpless burden to her prince any longer, Kimi forces herself up. With a fierce glare, she channels every ounce of her remaining willpower. Through the tiny hamsters she deployed earlier, Kimi maps out the entire facility. The cute little creatures squeeze through the vents, taking position above every cell block. Unleashing her true potential, Kimi activates the Hamness network. A brilliant surge of energy connects her pets into a massive communications grid that overrides the prison's security. Broadcasting her voice directly into the cells of every captured beast tamer, Kimi flashes a wicked grin and invites the entire prison to start a massive riot. Deep in the facility's laboratory, Therion listens to the chaos with a manic smile. Staring at a horrifying creature suspended in a fluid tank, he joyfully declares that the real party is about to begin.
Gero and Kinosaki infiltrate the Beast Tamer's underground stronghold, hoping to end the Dark Syndicate's reign. Deep inside, they uncover a massive glowing laboratory harboring the very polar bear they fought previously. The pink-haired mastermind Toshiro doesn't even flinch at their arrival, effortlessly ordering his giant beast to eliminate them. The polar bear, Byako, wasn't always a monster. As a child, he watched his mother slowly fade away after a botched syndicate job. Because they were undocumented tamers, the dedicated underground hospitals cruelly slammed their doors on the begging boy. Toshiro found the grieving child and manipulated his broken heart, offering him the power to destroy their unforgiving world. Now fully devoted to his twisted savior, Byako launches a devastatingly fast assault against the intruders. But tragic loyalty means nothing to an elite assassin, and Gero effortlessly brings the massive bear down with a single, precise slash. Toshiro isn't bothered by the loss. He casually tosses a wounded girl aside, claiming his real masterpiece is finally ready. The giant containment tank shatters, revealing a horrifying chimera synthesized from the bloodlines of 93 different creatures.
To complete the horrific ritual, Toshiro drops the injured girl straight into the beast as a living, breathing catalyst. The cavern violently shakes as the abomination awakens, pulsing with an unnatural, terrifying aura. Gero quickly realizes his small combat knives are completely useless against the creature's thick, mutated armor. Forced to improvise, he expertly brings down massive skeletal remains from the cave ceiling to use as heavy weaponry. Yet even wielding a giant bone whip, Gero finds himself horribly outmatched by the beast's impossible speed and shifting muscle mass. Every tactical move he attempts is perfectly countered, almost as if the monster is reading his very heartbeat. Toshiro reveals the crushing truth. The chimera is infused with Gero's own DNA, making it a physically superior version of the assassin himself. Lying wounded on the cavern floor, Gero seems entirely finished until his smartphone suddenly starts ringing in the dirt.
It's Marin, completely oblivious to the life-or-death battle, calling to enthusiastically remind him to keep his schedule open for a concert. Toshiro sneers at the mundane interruption, ordering his beast to crush them and end their trivial little lives. But that beautifully ordinary phone call gives Gero exactly what he needs, a normal future worth surviving for. Realizing his overthinking is making him predictable, Gero dons a skull mask to shut off his tactical mind entirely. Fighting purely on raw, unfiltered instinct, his movements become a chaotic blur that the chimera can no longer anticipate. In a brutal display of adaptability, Gero severs the beast's massive arm and casually decides to borrow it. Forcing his own nervous system to connect with the dead limb, he transforms it into a colossal, devastating skull hammer. With a crushing final blow, the chimera falls, and Gero removes his mask, politely apologizing for having to ruin their plans.
His body pushed far past its breaking point, the elite assassin collapses, quietly asking Kinosaki for just 5 minutes of rest. But the nightmare is far from over. The dying chimera weakly begs Toshiro to consume its remaining flesh. Basking in a terrifying red aura, the mad scientist accepts the sacrifice, merging his body with the horrific mass of beastly DNA. He instantly drops from the ceiling to eliminate Kinosaki, but a sudden torrent of water saves her as Gero's allies finally arrive. It hardly matters to Toshiro, who completes his ultimate transformation by unleashing the true, grotesque power of the beast blood lineage. He mutates into an apocalyptic, godlike abomination, radiating a terror so intense it physically paralyzes everyone in the cavern. Just as the monster's jaws snap down to devour them, Gero injects himself with 3 lethal poisons simultaneously. The toxic triple sends his power surging to impossible heights, allowing him to dodge the fatal strike with a fearless smile, absolutely determined to protect his chance at a normal life.
Hikaru's family possesses a unique poison bloodline that grows stronger the closer its host comes to death. During a desperate fight against a powerful beast tamer, Hikaru deliberately overdoses on his own toxin, a reckless move that should guarantee his death. But instead of dying, the emotional growth he gained through his marriage hunt compresses decades of experience into a sudden, miraculous evolution. Completely outclassed by Hikaru's newfound speed, the humiliated beast tamer refuses to accept defeat and decides to unleash his clan's darkest legacy. He is deeply offended that someone with such terrifying lethal talent would waste it on trying to protect ordinary people. Pushing his body past its limits, the assassin transforms into a hulking monster, commanding a legion of stolen beast spirits for one ultimate strike. Yet the devastating spiritual attack harmlessly passes right through Hikaru because he holds absolutely zero killing intent in his heart. He no longer fights to destroy his enemies, but to secure a normal, happy future alongside the people he cares about. With his mind perfectly clear, Hikaru prepares to execute his family's absolute masterpiece, an incurable poison guaranteed to end any conflict. Unleashing a brilliant flash of venomous energy, he shatters the beast tamer's spiritual defenses in a single, overwhelming collision. The toxic shockwave instantly paralyzes the villain, forcing him to helplessly watch as his own body begins to shut down.
Driven completely mad by the fear of losing, the beast tamer mutilates his own body to discard his humanity entirely. Now reduced to a mindless gargoyle, he launches a blind, devastating rampage, intent on taking everyone down with him. But a skilled poison user never relies on brute force, and Hikaru casually delivers a concentrated dose straight to the monster's core. Trapped in the silent abyss of his own failing mind, the beast tamer finally realizes that his terrifying strength was never enough. Refusing to die alone, the creature desperately drags its broken body forward for one last spiteful attack against the innocent hostages. Before the beast can strike, its body suddenly freezes in sheer panic as the freed prisoners emerge from the shadows. Erica steps forward, reminding the crowd that the captive beasts are not their enemies, but their beloved childhood partners crying out in pain. Reconnecting with their lost bonds, the true tamers soothe the corrupted spirits, leaving the monstrous villain entirely paralyzed by their unified empathy. With the monster pinned down by its own stolen power, Hikaru steps up to deliver the final, chain-breaking blow. As the beast tamer's consciousness fades, the tragic root of his madness is finally revealed. He was deemed unworthy by his elders and mocked with a mere bat. That profound humiliation fractured his mind, fueling a desperate psychotic obsession to steal other animals and prove his superiority at any cost.
Waking up from the abyss, the defeated assassin is utterly bewildered to find himself still breathing after taking an allegedly incurable poison. Hikaru coldly explains that his toxins are controlled entirely by his will, and he never actually wanted to take a life today. The broken man laughs at the mercy, screaming that their elite bloodlines are nothing but a tragic curse of violence and survival. But Hikaru firmly rejects that worldview, vowing to prove with his own life that his power can be used to protect rather than destroy. Before they can interrogate him further, the assassin's fiercely loyal subordinate grabs his broken body and sprints into the dark forest. Knowing the villains still hold dangerous secrets, Hikaru and Kiba relentlessly pursue them through the dense woods. Just as they are about to capture the fugitives, a massive white wolf crashes down from the canopy to intercept them. From behind the terrifying beast emerges an elegant woman, radiating an overwhelming aura of danger and calm authority. She casually apologizes for her foolish brother's behavior, revealing herself is the true head of the Beast Tamer clan. Realizing that the real mastermind was hiding in plain sight the entire time, the exhausted group can do nothing but scream into the night.
The Beastmaster holds all the cards, dangling her hostage from the jaws of a giant white wolf. She offers Gero a twisted alliance for the future of their clans, then vanishes into the night, leaving behind nothing but smoke and unanswered questions. But before Gero can dwell on the escape, his attention is stolen by a loud, familiar voice. To express her ultimate gratitude, Arashiyama orchestrates a spectacular animal festival, turning the dark ocean into her own magical stage. She knows her abilities pale in comparison to Gero's, but she refuses to be ashamed. She declares that she will hold her head high and survive proudly. Seeing their hearts connect, the ultimate marriage swindler, Kinosaki, senses a golden opportunity. It is time for Gero to make his move. To hype him up, Peach shares his own story. He reveals that he fights through the danger for one simple reason: to protect the normal, happy life he shares with his girlfriend. Gero is completely blinded by Peach's majestic aura of a man who knows exactly what he wants. Kinosaki whispers the ultimate secret into Gero's ear. Arashiyama actually has feelings for him. All he has to do now is casually ask for her contact info. But for a legendary assassin trained to face death without blinking, asking a girl for her number is a psychological nightmare. Gero's brain completely short-circuits under the pressure, leaving Kinosaki sweating in sheer terror as the plan rapidly crumbles.
Seeing his panic, Arashiyama gently steps forward and shatters the tension with a direct, fearless confession. However, she immediately follows it up with a surprising twist. She cannot accept being his marriage partner just yet. With tears streaming down her face, she admits that she lacks confidence in herself. If they married now, she would only become a burden, and she hates that. Instead, she vows to refine herself, become fiercely independent, and return one day to make him truly fall for her. The sheer sincerity of her words melts Gero's anxiety away. For a guy who always felt unworthy, having someone try this hard for him is the greatest gift imaginable. They finally manage to exchange contacts, sealing a promise for the future, as Kinosaki watches proudly from the sidelines. As they part ways at the harbor, Arashiyama announces her next grand adventure, starting a detective agency to find her missing brother. Watching her leave, Gero reflects on all the incredible women he has met. Their relentless effort inspires him to become a much more charming and worthy man. Kinosaki smiles, promising to put Gero through the most grueling training of his life to reach that goal. Meanwhile, a sinister threat stirs in the shadows. A rogue branch family member named Deadliest survives a horrifying poison baptism, emerging unhinged and obsessed with Gero's marriage.
Unaware of the impending danger, Gero begins his promised training. But instead of dodging bullets, he is thrown into a rapid-fire gauntlet of giving love advice at a local diner. From high school crushes to dramatic workplace romances, Gero is forced to navigate the complex battlefield of normal human relationships. The endless emotional labor breaks the assassin faster than any physical combat ever could. Steam literally pours from his exhausted brain. Desperate for an escape, Gero nearly injects himself with a dangerous brain-boosting poison just to survive the consultations. Kinosaki quickly snatches the syringe away, gently reminding him that there are no perfect answers in love. His panic and confusion aren't failures, they are proof that he is taking other people's feelings seriously, just like everyone else. Later that night, Gero formally bows to his mentor. Before meeting Kinosaki, his life was completely empty, but now, every day feels like an adventure. Touched by his sincerity, Kinosaki promises to stick by his side until they finally achieve the ultimate marriage. But the heartwarming peace is short-lived. Back in the city, Gero reunites with his sister, Akari, who officially warns him that Teruaki is making his move. Standing on a rooftop overlooking the city, Teruaki stares at a photo of Kinosaki with a malicious grin. The innocent hunt for love has just turned into a deadly game of survival.